Hey, what's up, pups? It's JR, and welcome to the season finale of Built to Destroy Season 7. My brother's sleeping after a long day of work as I'm recording this, and I don't want to wake him up. So, time for a series of renders, JR, to take the stage. There we go. I don't have much to say before we get into it this time around, so I'll just take a quick second to plug a few things. First off, if you like my content and want to meet a few people who also like my content or just want a place to chill out and chat, then you should go to the link in the description and join the JR Community public Discord. Second, I have a Twitch channel as well. I haven't been streaming a lot lately, but I'm going to be streaming the beta of Fallout 76 when it goes live, so if you like Fallout, you won't want to miss that. Make sure to follow me by using the link in the description, twitch.tv/tvjericho, and to follow me on Twitter to be notified the moment I go live. And finally, if you want more of my content than Built to Destroy, make sure to check out some of my non-Warframe videos as well. I just posted the fourth part to my playthrough of Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC, so make sure to get caught up if you're not already. There was one more thing I wanted to plug, but I can't remember what it was. Well, I guess we'll just move on to the video then. Warframe. It's a game many of us love. Mind you, it's usually a case of you hate to love it or love to hate it, but either way, it always comes back to the fact that everyone watching this video loves Warframe in one way or the other. While it is a very solid game, and unless you talk to the people who have been playing it for at least a few years, or the people who just got started by diving in headfirst into something they have no idea how to do, odds are you'll hear almost nothing but praise for this game. Sure, there are bugs and exploits here and there, but those get ironed out usually very quickly, thanks to the devs actually giving a shit about the game they made. Looking at Warframe as a whole, however, there is one universal constant. Nerfs. Some of the time, the nerfs are intentional, similar to the effective DPS reduction of Cyanoid Simulor and Tonkor from way back when they dominated the meta. However, the common nerfs usually come with good intentions, and are just an unfortunate side effect of a proposed rework. Like Atlas, for example. Before his rework, he was in a rather rough spot, but if you dedicated yourself to him, odds are you made him at least viable in high levels. But when his rework came, they made him feel much more clunky than he was, and didn't do very much for his survivability or anything positive like that. Mainly because his rubble system didn't quite run as smoothly as it did on paper, seeing as how they increased his total energy consumption by something like 75% by making his Petrify a single cast ability instead of a channeled ability. I don't remember the exact numbers, however, so take that statement with a grain of salt. But among these types of nerfs, intentional and unintentional, there's a third type. I'll call them Pyrrhic nerfs, so I sound cool for using intelligent sounding words. These are, quote, nerfs, unquote, that have been fabricated by the community, even though they weren't actually nerfs. A great example was when Saren got first reworked a long time ago. This rework reduced her maximum health, but increased her base armor and energy pool, as well as changing her abilities to have more synergy between them. Instead of focusing on the fact that DE made Saren more involved by making her abilities rely on each other, thus making her more enjoyable overall, a large portion of the community saw her health reduction and labeled the entire change as a nerf. Even though her new EHP mathed out to be about the same it was before, but she was more focused on armor instead of health. The reason I bring up Pyrrhic nerfs is because our Warframe this season has fallen victim to a Pyrrhic nerf, thusly causing her to see much less playtime overall, even though nothing really changed. In fact, when word was going around that she got nerfed and I stopped seeing her as much in public play, I gave her a few fair shots to see what the big deal was and found she played exactly the same. Even now, after having looked at the change notes from that time, I still have no fucking clue where people got the idea that she was nerfed from. I vaguely remember it having something to do with her fourth ability, but as I just said, she plays exactly the same. I'm having a hard time trying not to name drop anything about her to keep up suspense, so we'll just move on to her now. Ember Prime. Ember Prime is the prime variant of the Warframe Ember, whose abilities, guess what, focus on controlling fire to lay waste to all those who stand in her way. Ember Prime, however, is currently in the Prime Vault, so there's no way to get her other than trade chat. But don't worry, By the next time I make a BTD on a Warframe, hopefully, I should have someone much more accessible to all you newer players out there. Ember Prime comes with 100 base health, 125 shields and armor, and 150 base energy, which is pretty much a dead giveaway that she is supposed to be a caster Warframe, focusing on her abilities before everything else. And she does that job well. So she's a very solid Warframe if you build and play her properly and not just spec into nothing but shields or something stupid like that. This on top of the fact that she is possibly one of the coolest looking Warframes in the entire game. Fun fact time. Ember Prime was my very first Prime Warframe, who I got way back in Update 13, and the Ember you'll be seeing is the same Ember I've had for almost 5 years. I had never even played base Ember, and I just went straight for Ember Prime. Not just because I don't care about mastery and I didn't see the point of getting base Ember when I could just jump straight to the Prime, but instead because I saw Ember Prime and I was just like, I need that in my inventory right now. Usually if you see an Ember, she's running a build focused around using her for the entirety of the mission. For this reason, and due to my attitude of a fuck being normal in Warframe, I've decided to make my Ember more focused around buffing me and my teammates as opposed to being the one who CCs everything. But before we get into that, we'll first have to look at her abilities. Ember's passive ability is Ignition, which makes it so Ember regenerates a massive 10 energy per second and gains an extra 35% ability strength while she is on fire. This can come from fire-based environmental hazards, enemies like napalm, scorches, Hyakumasters, and flame blades, and even from yourself if you have a weapon that can self-damage. This means it is possible to get a dump weapon for self-damage that you build for low damage and high status chance and duration, so you can make it heat damage and shoot the ground whenever you need energy, saving you all those energy restores. Now, Ember's first ability is Fireball. When cast, Ember throws a fireball in the direction you are looking that deals an initial 400 heat damage on the initial impact and an extra 150 heat damage in a 5-meter AoE explosion. In addition, when fireball comes in contact with a solid surface or an enemy, it leaves behind a lingering bonfire that does damage over time. The lingering fire is static and cannot be moved, so if you plan on utilizing it, it's best to throw it in a doorway or in the middle of a hallway to proc anyone coming through, due to Fireball's 100% status chance. The blast radius of Fireball and the size of the bonfire are not affected by range mods, as well as the duration of the heat proc not being affected by duration mods, nor is the duration of the bonfire. However, the damage of the initial impact, the explosion, and effectively the damage per second of the bonfire are all affected by power strength. I say effectively because the damage of the bonfire is based entirely on the damage of the initial impact, dealing 20% of its damage every second for 10 seconds. This means because of the impact's 400 base damage, the bonfire does 80 base heat damage per second. In addition, again, Fireball can be charged by holding the ability button to increase its damage and radius of the bonfire. A fully charged Fireball does double the damage Fireball would normally do, meaning the impact does 800, the explosion does 300, and the bonfire does 160 damage per second, as well as doubling the radius of the bonfire. The base range of the bonfire is not listed, so I'm just gonna assume it's 5 meters like the explosion. Ember's second ability is Accelerant. When cast, Ember coats enemies in a base 20-meter radius and highly flammable accelerant, multiplying the damage of heat-based attacks by 2.5 times for 30 seconds. Not only does this work as a much more effective roar from Rhino if you're using pure heat damage weaponry, but it also doubles as a sort of radial blind, because enemies coated in accelerant get stunned for a short time. In addition, while accelerant is active, Ember gains 50% more casting speed to her abilities. This is good because her 3 and her 4 have decently long casting animations, and how long it takes to charge Fireball is based on your casting speed. This means you can fully charge Fireball in 1.25 seconds instead of the base 2.5. The heat damage multiplier is affected by strength mods, the duration of the accelerant is affected by duration mods, and the range you can affect enemies is affected by range mods. However, the casting speed increase is not affected by mods whatsoever. It is always 50%. This is a very helpful ability, but only if you have pure heat damage weaponry, or if you use it in conjunction with Ember's other abilities. This leaves its usability very limited, but that can be fixed, and we'll get to that in a bit. Ember's third ability is Fire Blast. When cast, Ember slams the ground to create a burning ring of fire that brings enemies down, down, down while the flames go higher. More specifically, Ember creates a ring of fire that lingers for 20 seconds. Casting this ability also sends out a giant heat wave similar to the attack that Arson Eximus use. The ring itself does 225 damage per second, so long as an enemy is within the ring. And the heat wave does 200 burst damage to anyone it passes over, as well as knocking them down. Also, if you shoot your weapons through the ring of fire from any angle, similar to Volt's electric shield, it adds 50% heat damage to that shot before mods, similar to if you were to just add an additional elemental mod, but obviously with lower values. However, if you place multiple rings, you can shoot through those multiple rings to increase the amount of heat damage added, so long as the shot passes through them before hitting its mark. If it passes through 2, then hits the target, it will have gained plus 100% heat damage. Passes through 3, 150%, and so on. The damage of the ring and the heat wave are affected by strength mods, but the heat damage bonus is not, and the duration the ring lingers is affected by duration mods. The range of both the ring and the heat wave are both not affected by range mods. Ember's fourth ability is World on Fire. When cast, pillars of fire begin to burst through the ground all around Ember, prioritizing bursting under enemies in range. These pillars deal 400 base damage per second for the short duration they linger after bursting, and have a 35% chance to inflict a heat proc on enemies hit, causing the enemy to panic and rendering them unable to attack. World on Fire will target up to 5 enemies at a time within a 15-meter radius. However, this ability has a caveat. After burning for 6 seconds, Ember begins to lose control of the Inferno, slowly increasing its damage, but also increasing its drain per second. After 9.5 seconds, Ember will have completely overheated, and World on Fire's damage and drain will have both doubled. And its targeting range, halved. The initial drain of this ability is 3 energy per second, but after burning for a total of 15.5 seconds, it will be knocked up to 6 energy per second, and will stay that way until you either run out of energy or turn off the ability. Which, if you recast the ability, the overheat will be completely reset, and the ability will go back to its base values. In addition, Ember's ignition passive is disabled while World on Fire is active. The damage of the flame pillars and their status chance are both affected by strength mods. The energy drain is affected by both efficiency and duration mods, and the targeting range is affected by range mods. Now for augment mods. Fireball has the Fireball Frenzy mod, which allows you to cast Fireball on allies to add 100% more heat damage to any attack your teammate uses, including abilities, for the duration of 40 seconds. This bonus takes effect after mods, meaning if your teammate has a weapon that does 500 total damage with their build, if you cast Fireball on them, you will give them 500 more points of damage in the form of heat damage, effectively doubling their damage output. The damage bonus is affected by your Ember's strength, and the duration of the buff is affected by your duration. You also don't have to worry about charging it every time you want to give your teammate the best buff, as it always gives the same amount, no matter the charge. Unfortunately though, with this augment on, Fireball no longer explodes on impact. Accelerant has its Flash Accelerant augment, which I personally use. This makes it so Accelerant also affects allies in range, increasing their casting speed, not just yours, and giving them and yourself a 50% extra heat damage in the same way that Fireball Frenzy works, after mods. The amount of damage added is affected by your Ember's strength, and the duration of the buff is affected by her duration. This is an amazing augment, because odds are you don't have a weapon with heat damage, as it's a rather lackluster damage type, much like the other base elements. So if you want to take advantage of Accelerant, you can bring your normal gear, and so long as you don't have another base element to combine it with, like Cold to make blast damage, instead you will get half of your weapon's total damage added as heat damage before strength mods. This can make it so you can hit much harder, especially if you attack an enemy affected by your Accelerant to get that damage multiplier. Base value wise, if you shoot an enemy affected by Accelerant with Flash Up, you're effectively adding 125% more heat damage to your attacks, due to the base multiplier of 2.5x, making Flash Accelerant a much more effective buff than Rhino's Roar before mods, and ignoring things like elemental resistances. My Ember has 244% ability strength, so in that same scenario, Accelerant effectively adds 744% of my damage as heat damage. However, take that with a grain of salt. I'm not very good at math, but I'm pretty sure I crunched the numbers right. It's a lot, I know that. Fire Blast has its Fire Fright augment, which essentially gives it 100% status chance, causing enemies to panic by setting them on fire. That's it. This augment is usable, because it's the only way that Fire Blast's Fire Ring will proc, otherwise it can't. But overall, there's not much to it. It's an augment that adds the ability to proc to an ability. There's not much to it. World on Fire has its Firequake augment, which guarantees enemies hit will be knocked down, similar to the last augment, but this effectively guarantees a blast proc instead. Odds are, you'll see most Embers using this augment, which honestly, I don't get. Base stats, World on Fire has a 35% chance to set people on fire and cause them to panic, taking them out of the fight for about the same duration Firequake would, but keeping them standing, so you can still headshot them easily if they're like high level or high priority targets. Also, the status chance of World on Fire is affected by ability strength, so once again, with my 244% strength, it brings up my status chance to 85.4%. It's not guaranteed, no, but it's damn near. It's a better investment just to build Ember for strength, which, let's be honest, you'll probably be doing that anyway, and save that mod slot that you would use for Firequake for something a bit more helpful, like Flash Accelerant, for example. Now, with that novel of an explanation behind us, let's move on to my build. After 5 Formas and an Exiles adapter, I have Vitality and Steel Fiber increasing my Ember's survivability, Blind Rage and Intensify increasing her strength, with Power Drift in my Exiles slot helping out, Fleeting Expertise and Streamline increasing her efficiency and counteracting Blind Rage's negative, Primed Continuity increasing her duration and counteracting Fleeting Expertise's negative, and finally, Flash Accelerant for the reasons I gave earlier. To show you the destructive power of Flash Accelerant,
I saw this boat in half!
I'm going to be testing my unbuilt Ignis without a Riven, with only these 5 mods keeping it pure heat damage so you can see what it can do to a straight out of the box Ignis. Of course though, I'm writing this script before I go and get the footage. So depending on the outcome, we'll see if it's actually worth my time and your time to see me testing Ignis and Flash on the corrupted Heavy Gunner Eximus, also known as Giga Nigga. Enough talk. Let's see what Ember can do. That's going to wrap up this episode of Built to Destroy. If you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to become a pup if you haven't already. Also, if you want to support me in the channel, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month, or even buy some merch. My name's JR, and I'll see you guys in the next one.